that leads us to the NBA Finals between the Thunder and the Pacers. Two franchises looking for their very first franchise win. This series was 10 times better than I think most people probably predicted. Nationers, welcome back to a brand new episode of The Realest Podcast, episode 76. The banner is right behind me. Welcome back to another episode. I hope that you guys are having a great week. I'm currently recording this on Friday. This is probably one of the earliest non-guest episodes that I've recorded into a week. So truthfully, there might be a few topics that come up even today, Saturday, and usually Sunday, because I guess I post Sunday, so it's kind of hard to talk about things that happened on Sunday, like the topic of conversation today in the NBA Finals, which happened last Sunday. But most importantly, now that I'm thinking about it, every time that I do like the banner right behind me, I personally don't know where the story of that comes from, to be honest. I wish there's a cool story. Maybe there is. I'll have to look back at like some of the first few episodes that we've done a few years ago, because it is quite interesting if you think about it. I just kind of like introduced the episode, which I get the nationers. I get that. I feel like it was one of those things that just kind of happened in the spur of the moment. Maybe there's some like footage way back in the day of said podcast that is, where I just kind of went with the flow. I'm not too sure, but super excited for today's episode because there's a lot of big things, historic things in a way that did just happen. The NBA Finals just happened this last Sunday, which I just mentioned, where it's one of those things that happened Sunday. I kind of need to talk about it because it was a big event. You guys know me. I'm a big basketball fan, and the NBA Finals, as much as it is a little bit of a sore spot from last year when the Mavericks were in the NBA Finals, it is still very much a historic moment to watch and witness, especially a Game 7, the first since 2016, when the Warriors blew a 3-1 lead to the Cleveland Cavaliers. So that's a topic of conversation today, digesting everything that happened, the predictions I even made. Some of them came true, and most importantly, Nationers, Faith Kipyegon, a very, very talented middle distance runner from Kenya, just attempted to break 4 minutes in the mile. The first woman ever to even dare to, well, I guess most people might have tried, but she was one of the first women to officially attempt to break sub 4 in the mile, the first woman ever. That's crazy. So we're going to give some of those, my thoughts and results there. And most importantly, Nationers, again, a little bit of basketball. I know we talk about it a lot on this podcast. It almost feels like this is like a sports podcast as much as it is a basketball podcast. But we're going to be talking about the NBA draft. I have my winners and losers of this year's NBA draft. Some shockers that I did not expect, and some people that I did not expect to fall as far as they did and get picked up by very good teams. So we're going to be talking about that today. But before we get into it, Nationers, this weekend, again, a Hoop Fest, a basketball-based reference, Hoop Fest, which I've competed in the last 2 years, competed back when I was just graduating high school in 2019. And most importantly, this year, it's happening again, Hoop Fest, which brings in 250,000 fans per year. Every single year for a 2-day event, 250,000 fans. Funny historic lore, Kevin Durant, the Slim Reaper in 2016, maybe 2015, 2016, decided to just show up. He showed up. And funny story, my coach at the time, my distance coach for cross country, he was playing like a few courts over, actually. And the worst case scenario, maybe a little bit of like foreshadowing, his brother tears his Achilles, his dad tears his Achilles, and they can only play with 2 people, which by the rules you can't. I'm sure maybe there's a little bit of a mercy rule where it's like, if you want to play with 2, you can, but technically you can't. So all of that to say, out of the 4 people that they had on the team, 2 of them tear an Achilles. They're playing a 3v2, and obviously with KD being there, a few courts over, just kind of in the central area of what I would consider the Hoop Fest venue, which at the time was just kind of a parking lot, but we've actually kind of moved it more to the pavilion, which is a super cool monument. If you've ever seen photos of Spokane, you've probably seen the pavilion, probably seen the clock tower. And so Kevin Durant also tears his Achilles in game 5 or 6 of the 2019 finals, which, again, a little bit of foreshadowing, just personally, of course. Obviously, that doesn't really mean much. People tear their Achilles. People have injuries. People tear their ACLs. It's a whole deal. There's 3,000 volunteers. It's obviously court monitors, people that are, I guess, a little bit superior than that. Also medics, and obviously people putting on this event. So there's over 3,000 volunteers. There's 24,000 approximate players. Now, not every team has 4 people on it, so it's obviously approximate. You kind of just take the teams and times it by 4. And obviously, most teams probably do load up with 4 people, but there are teams with 3, which means no subs. You got to play the entire 20-minute game with 1 timeout. Technically 2 if the other team takes 1, but it's a super cool event. My teammates from 2 years ago, Gage and Noah, they're actually going to be playing in this year, so I'm going to be watching them. We're hopefully going to be doing some more IRL live streaming there, so that's going to be a ton of fun. And on top of that, a guest on this podcast, Lucas, I don't know where he's at on here. Oh, he's in the upper right to you guys. He's a little bit out of frame. He's actually going to be hosting the dunk contest, and he's going to be doing the Toyota half-court shot. So he's actually going to be pretty much hosting a good chunk of Hoop Fest, which is super awesome for him. Super proud of him, especially because not only was he a guest on this podcast, he's a great friend of mine. We still stay in contact very closely throughout these years, especially after he came on. On top of that, Nationers, I want to mention, obviously I feel like with this podcast, we're getting through the first 100 episodes. I feel like I'm very much experimenting with what this look and feel of the podcast looks like, especially for solo podcasts, if that makes sense. And this is no different. I have the camera just a little bit closer. Obviously, we have like just the 6 and obviously all of the banner, but maybe we change it up. And I feel like with these episodes, I have the opportunity to do that. There's obviously no stress in doing that, especially early on in the podcast life. And obviously with that, the upper echelon of people, they don't get the opportunity to kind of be shown in some of these episodes. So it's not a personal thing that I don't like I don't like Casey, or I don't like Samson, Mario, Zach, Bloda, John, Josh, Knight, Brandon, Lucas. Like, it's not that I don't like these people. Obviously, Oliver, he does not have a photo. We will get that photo one day. But not that I don't like them. Obviously, is like their photos like, maybe I look bad, whatever it may be. It's just, I'm kind of experimenting. I kind of had a concept and something that I really wanted this podcast to be, especially very early on. I remember there was a few episodes, maybe around even I think my second episode too. This was like a very interesting thing that I had done. But the second episode that I ever did, it was when I turned 19. I was like just learning how to read, because, hey, my name's Jared, I'm 19. I never learned how to freaking read. All of that to say, I had like myself on both sides, and I had the camera pushed all the way back to like the end of the carpet, because there's a rug here. It's a rug on a carpet, but the rug is like just fits wall to wall. So all of that to say, I had myself over here and had another chair over here and had the desk that we normally see a part of these podcasts. And I just had the camera, but it was just me. And then I just kind of experimented. I had myself on the side and had the camera close to me. So I was kind of at an angle, but then, I think this just kind of spawned in at some point, and I think it's been there ever since. I don't exactly know the pure origin of it, but it is super awesome to see just the evolution of the podcast from thumbnails. Thumbnails are, I think, one thing that I'm still kind of working on, just because obviously, yes, I do a video portion of this. When it comes to Spotify, when it comes to Apple Podcasts, which I know it's kind of crazy because I see the data. There are like people, if you guys are watching on Apple Podcasts, thank you. You would think, I know Spodcast is a big podcast place. I mentioned this maybe 20 plus episodes ago, but there is someone from Antigua that watches the podcast. It's Antigua and something. Maybe it's Bermuda and Antigua. I know the flag. It's like blue with like black, like a black stripe or maybe 2 stripes, and kind of almost like a little shield looking kind of tribal thing like the Kenyan flag has.
But somebody watches from there, which is like super cool. Which like I make this podcast, I film it in Spokane, you know, my hometown pretty much. And you just never know, especially when there are people getting into content. You just never really know like who the people that you can reach across the world. And again, with this podcast, it's no different. You get people from Germany, from France, from Switzerland, the United States, obviously, tons of people from Mexico. It's just, you would never expect like someone just to like tune into a podcast, you know, just kind of yapping for a extended period of time. But most importantly, Nationers, I do want to thank you guys so much for, again, watching this podcast, viewing audio, video, whatever it may be. It is greatly appreciated. If you guys are watching on any device that is not YouTube, on any platform, that's the word, that is not YouTube, make sure to rate the podcast 5 stars. I believe we have 5 stars on Spotify, which is super cool, which is like a really cool thing to say. So thank you to anyone who has left a review on this podcast. And most importantly, I do want to get into the nitty-gritty of today's podcast because, yes, the NBA Finals has just concluded. The NBA season is finished, which is a little sad because at least men's basketball is done, which it's like, oh my goodness, like there's so many games per year. You have to think about 30 teams, 82 games. That's over 2,000. No, that's 1,200 games per year because every team's playing each other head to head. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. We started this season back in October, and we're here in June. And as much as there have been people like, maybe we should shift the season, maybe we can, shorten the playoffs because, man, there's so many injuries. And I always feel like with injuries, people are always like, man, they're playing too many games, like 82. They have a restriction if they want to make all NBA, first team, second team, third team, defensive, rookie, whatever it may be. Any accolade, any NBA award. It's really sad to see when somebody goes down, and this playoffs was no different. We obviously had an electric playoffs, an electric finals even. I want to talk about, in short, a little bit of this playoffs, and most importantly, I want to really dive deep into Game 7, and most importantly, the final series between the Thunder and Pacers. Obviously, both of the roads were very much different. The Pacers and Bucks were coming in the first round matchup. I think a lot of people, I will say I'm not one of those people, thought that the Bucks would beat the Pacers, which I was like, there's no way. Damian Lillard, he's got a calf strain. He's got blood clots in his calf, which, if you ask me, anything your calf, and especially playing a more perimeter type of player, where you're moving laterally, you're always kind of taking a jab step and quick step, big dorsiflexion through the calf. It's a risky one to come back from. Damian Lillard put his body on the line, and with that, he tore his Achilles. And, by the way, I have my prediction for what I had during the playoffs. So maybe we could go through it. I will say I was wrong with the winner. I kind of thought the Lakers were going to win. Let me see if I could go back. It's like way back here in April. It might be. I did it like right before a track meet, which is like absolutely hilarious. I did it right before a track meet. And I screenshotted it. Let's see if I can find it. Let's see when these photos were taken. That's April 19th. Oh, here it is. Yeah. Okay. So, and again, if we look at the other side of the coin, the OKC Thunder were going up against the Memphis Grizzlies. I thought that was going to be a closer matchup. I thought it actually was kind of a close matchup. I was really surprised that the Memphis Grizzlies, especially without Ja, or when Ja was able to play, he actually gave them kind of a run for their money. The hard part is when a star or a big role player does go down, which we actually saw during the Denver Nuggets Thunder series when Aaron Gordon went down with a hamstring in post-Game 6. Played Game 7. He was a big role player, big contributor, one of those guys that they kind of needed to win, and that game happened to be a blowout. So obviously the Thunder advanced through the first from the Grizzlies. They advanced through the second in Game 7, which I was really surprised that game, that series actually went to 7. So all that to say, they beat the Denver Nuggets, and then they actually faced the Minnesota Timberwolves in the Western Conference Finals, which is not a team that I had actually make it out of the first round. So all of that to say, I had the Clippers beating the Nuggets in round 1, actually facing the Thunder. Then I had the Lakers beating the Timberwolves. And then I also had the Warriors beating the Rockets, which was true. That one was correct. That game, that series was actually pretty good. I just thought like the defensive versatility and the experience from the Warriors would have taken down the Rockets, which they did. And I thought the Minnesota Timberwolves were very short-sighted. They had a good run kind of coming into the playoffs, but so did the Lakers, and they were well rested. They did not have to play in their final games, so I really thought that they were going to do better. Rudy Gobert legacy game in that series, so I had the Thunder versus the Clippers in round 2 and the Lakers versus the Warriors getting us a LeBron-Steph series again. But that obviously did not happen. That was actually the Timberwolves versus the Warriors, and that just happened to be almost a blowout in itself. But then I had the Lakers beating the Warriors going up against the Thunder, and I just thought that the big lineup, the experience, the slow-placed game was actually going to benefit the Lakers in that series, and they were going to make the finals. And on the other side, again, we're talking about the Pacers. They beat the Bucks, obviously with a wounded Bucks lineup. They just had no depth. Bobby Portis did not play well. I don't know what Brook Lopez, I don't know what planet he was on in that series. Shot super poor from 3. Could not get a rebound to save his life against Miles Turner, who was like 2-3 inches shorter than him. On top of that, I had the Cavs beating the Heat. They did that. That game actually, that series was kind of predicted. On top of that, I had the Knicks beating Detroit, which... Not going to lie, I did not expect Detroit to play maybe as well as they did. They brought it to 6, but I will say I did think that they would play well, actually give them a little bit of almost an ag, just because the lineups for the Knicks, as short-sighted as they are, the depth is very short. You know, they're not playing Tyler Kolek, who is like their draft pick from last year, which typically you don't do. You typically do play your draft picks. They just weren't going to play him in that first round or all playoffs, which they really only did when they were like in a blowout. But the Detroit Pistons, I got to give them credit because that was a great series. I think that the Detroit Pistons would have had a better time beating the Celtics just because they're so young, so agile. They're very thick. Compared to a lot of the people on the Knicks. Again, short rotation. Very like 6-7 man rotation. A lot of the time it felt like 8-man rotation at the most. I just thought that the Detroit Pistons would have had a better chance of beating Boston. But obviously in that series, I think in game 2, Jason Tatum goes down, which is not a great sight to see. I think I've seen enough Achilles injuries over the past handful of years that once you see that pop in the calf, especially like the Aaron Rodgers Achilles injury, that one that they played like a million times, it felt like. I remember coming in on Monday Night Football and literally like I was like, man, I'm excited to see Aaron Rodgers on the Jets 2 years ago. And it just so happens that when that like third play of the drive, he tore his Achilles. And once I saw the pop, I was like, okay, that's like a good sign to sign basis. And once we saw that with Damian Lillard, once we saw that with Jason Tatum, and obviously in the finals, which we'll discuss here in a sec, you saw it again. And you knew exactly what had happened with that Achilles injury. So all of that to say, I had Boston beating the Magic. I thought the Magic, surprisingly, for as little offensive output as they have, I thought they gave the Celtics a run for their money, which I knew that their overall championship level, like title run was going to be very, very difficult. It was not going to be as easy as it was last year, just because when you look at it, you're like, how in the world are you almost losing to the Magic like almost every game? Like, yeah, the games are like 8 points, but like you make a few more free throws, you make a few more shots, maybe you miss a few more shots. Those games are nail biters every single game. But yeah, so I had the Knicks Celtics. I had pretty much all the matchups on the East correct, but I did have the Celtics going through. That's obviously with Jason Tatum on the team. But yeah, the Knicks absolutely steamrolled them, obviously in game 1. And obviously I will say, actually, the Cleveland Cavaliers did not obviously make it through. The Pacers did win that. And then obviously the Knicks, which is a legacy matchup, which we love to see. I know a lot of people said that would be a very boring series. If people are going to say that that's a boring series, I've immediately validated anything they have to say about basketball. That is such a legacy 90s, like Reggie Miller. I want to say Patrick Ewing, but I feel like that timeline's just off. all of that to say, it's just such a legacy like matchup. We've seen this matchup, 25 plus years ago, obviously in the Eastern Conference. And even before that, it's just been one of those matchups that you're like, I don't really care like who the players are, like maybe how good the series might be. It's going to be a good series. It's kind of like when you think about in football, when you're going up against a division rival, no matter if your team sucks. Like the Raiders always face the Chiefs, and it's always a close game. Aiden O'Connell is the kryptonite to Patrick Mahomes. I am excited to watch the game every single time, knowing that like it's going to be a good game, even if we're 2-9 and the other team, the Chiefs in this case, is like 10-1. That's what that matchup is like. But obviously, I was wrong in the Eastern Conference. I had the Cavs and the Celtics. I just thought the Pacers were going to have like a dud from last year as well. They obviously surprised us. They were a super big comeback team. Their depth was insane. We obviously saw that in the finals. We saw that in the Eastern Conference Finals. And then obviously the Thunder did beat the Timberwolves and the Lakers in my case. So I was wrong in the finals and obviously on the winner. So all of that to say, that was my basketball playoffs bracket. It was not exactly how I thought it would go. That's exactly how I thought it would go, but it was not exactly how it went. But that leads us to the NBA Finals between the Thunder and the Pacers. Two franchises looking for their very first franchise win. Now, if you think about it, the Supersonics have won the title before, but they did relocate to OKC and became the Thunder, so a completely different team. Kevin Durant, one of the last players to be on the Supersonics, he's no longer on the team. He just got traded to the Rockets. Both these teams are vying for a championship title. The first championship final, or the first finals in 25 years for the Pacers, the first ever for the Thunder, obviously when you're talking about specifically just the Thunder. But this series was 10 times better than I think most people probably predicted. I think personally, it's hard to count out the Pacers. As well as the Thunder, as good as they were throughout the season, a 60-plus win team, absolutely dominated on the offense and defensive edge. They had probably one of the biggest differentials when it comes to their offensive, defensive overall difference, efficiency rating, that's it, per game. One of the craziest, one of the best NBA seasons of all time. And I think for the most part, it's going to get short-sighted. I hate to say it. I think that season by the Thunder, this 24-25 season, will get very much short-sighted in the history books. I'm going to say it right now. Now the Thunder were the second youngest team to even be in the finals. And obviously, if they won, they would have been the second youngest team to win a finals, behind the 25 average age of the Blazers, back with Bill Walton, rest in peace. We've lost a lot of people this year, Bill Walton included, so rest in peace. Game 7 of the finals. Now, I'm going to start here just because this was the game that we had not watched yet. Game 7 of the finals, an absolute heater to start off the game. Tyrese Haliburton probably would have gone for 40+. I genuinely believe that. Tyrese Haliburton was 3 of 5 from the field, 3 of 4 from 3. Absolute heater. And mind you, these were not just like right at the 23, 24-foot line. These were like a handful of feet behind. And these were wet. These shots were like swooshing. They were not like little... They were just, they were absolute cash money. And so when I saw that, I was chilling with my Boston baked beans. I had my phone out just because I'm like, man, this is going to be a crazy game. Tyrese Haliburton goes down with an Achilles tear, which, man, that ugly cry, you absolutely knew. A lot of people, when they tear their Achilles, it's violent. It hurts. There's a handful of people that have no emotion. They immediately know. KD included. Aaron Rodgers included. Damian Lillard included. Jason Tatum was a little iffy on the, like, he was like down, but it was like, he wasn't like necessarily like bawling his eyes out at the moment, but he also wasn't like quiet. It's kind of like 50-50. And so you think about that. Tyrese Haliburton is ugly crying. Mind you, in game 5, he strains his calf. And anything about the calf complex, when that thing is strained, especially is how bottlenecked that muscle gets, that's a rough one to come back from. He played in game 6 because that's what you do. You know, when your back's against the wall, you're going to give everything you have for your team. But every minor injury comes at a risk. A shoulder strain could lead to a labrum tear, and you're out for the entire season, especially basketball. Like, you could deal with like a little oblique injury for like a bit. You could deal with like a wrist sprain. An ankle sprain you could come back from pretty quickly. But a torn labrum, a torn Achilles, an ACL tear, these things take a long time to heal. Well, that's not necessarily true. They don't take a whole long time to heal. They take a lot of time to strengthen back up. ACL tear, people are back within like 2 weeks. You know, they're somewhat walking. Some people are back within maybe a month, 6 weeks. You know, people are running within like 2 months. But to get that strength, you're talking about someone like Neymar, who's, you know, a striker in the sport of football. He had an ACL tear. He was back jogging within like 6 weeks, but he has had a lot of strengthening issues. And we haven't really seen Neymar on a big stage in a long time, especially after his ACL injury. So an Achilles injury is one of the most devastating injuries because it puts you out for like a year plus. KD didn't come back for like a year, like 18 months. That's insane. 18 months. And you're talking about this happened in June. Again, KD also tears his during that time. You're talking about Jason Tatum tearing his a few weeks ago. It's not that far off that we're going to see a lot of these guys coming back December of 2026 for the 26-27 season. Obviously, they're going to be out for the entirety of 25-26 unless they're on the ayahuasca with Aaron Rodgers. Who knows? It is quite an interesting injury. Your calf never is the same. It never looks the same. If you look at KD's calves, like you could definitely tell like one's just kind of slightly shrunken. And the most brutal part about Achilles injury is that you're never the same. That pick and pop. But I feel like that's not necessarily true. Because if you look back in the history of a lot of people like DeMarcus Cousins, like Kobe Bryant, who did suffer an Achilles tear, yes, these players, as great as they were in their prime, were on the tail end of their entire NBA career. In a way, Kobe played for a few more years after. Obviously, he's great. He's Kobe. DeMarcus Cousins, by the time he had tore it, he's out of the league. He's now playing in China. Or Puerto Rico, excuse me. Maybe the Dominican Republic, the Caribbean. But you'd have to think about, yes, the stats do look bad. That like, hey, your career is like pretty much not going to be the same. Now, yes, in ways it is. You will not be able to play as many games as you typically do. KD, who obviously has had a ton of injuries with his ankles, with his calves, just with injuries, he unfortunately has gone from a 70-plus games played per season down to an average of 54 post Achilles. Do I expect the same out of someone like Jason Tatum, Dame, and Tyrese Haliburton? I think all these people are so different. Jason Tatum's been in the league for a handful of years. Tyrese Burton was drafted in 2020. You have to think about what that looks like for Dame, who has been in the league since 2012. He's been, I think, at 2011, 2012. I'm kind of spitballing here. But nonetheless, Dame, someone who's probably going to be done. In a way, from the numbers of his career, he's not going to be that 30-point, 25-point explosion like him and Giannis were this entire year. They're the first duo, probably in a long time, maybe if ever, that have averaged 25-plus points the entire season. Excuse me. You don't see that very often. I mean, Stephen Curry's been around a 25-point average player. You have to think about what KD looks like, you know, averaging around 27 his entire career. He hasn't averaged any less than 25 points per season in the ones that he's not played since his rookie season. Or excuse me, that's a lie. His field goal percentage is not lowered since 50. So you can imagine if he's taking a lot of shots, 50% of them, he only needs about 12 shots to go in. Some of those being threes, so maybe a little bit less than that. He's been a prolific scorer. He's one of my favorite players of all time. And when that happened, I was devastated. Obviously, He then went on to Brooklyn, had a great career there. His toes were too big, probably would have won the finals. And that's the brutal part of injuries because Kyrie Irving was out. That's the part of this sport. It is very hard to win a championship. And I saw this one thing because, yes, it's super awesome that the Thunder won. SGA was the finals MVP. This was one of the most entertaining NBA finals of all time, if not ever, at least in my lifetime. They averaged 16.1 average viewers for the entire game. And I don't know what that dip looks like. It probably could have been more if Tyrese Haliburton had not gotten hurt, again, with an Achilles injury. The Pacers' comebacks this entire season, this entire playoff run, not only in game one, but even when it was against the Bucks in overtime, 111 to 118 with how many seconds left? Not a whole lot. You have to think about the Thunder's elite defense. They were unstoppable in more ways than one, especially against a very depth Pacers. Like, if you're going to take out our first option, well, hey, here's our second option. Here's our third option. Let's see what you got. It's just a war of an attrition for this entire series. And again, with both teams chasing their first overall title, the first in OKC's history, at least the first in Pacers overall, it's kind of cool. It's a very entertaining series. And you have to think about, I had something in my head and I was kind of talking about it. I don't know where I left off. I've lost my flow. But you have to think about, again, just the star power in this series. It is, quite honestly, again, one of the most entertaining series that I've been privileged to watch. Again, with millions of people watching, tuning in, wherever they're from. I had something that I was going to say, and then I pivoted to, like, how exciting this was, and I've completely forgot it. Oh, gosh. That's gonna haunt me. If you think you know, leave it down in the comment section on the YouTube channel. Also, make sure to subscribe in case you guys haven't already. We're obviously on the road to 1,000 subscribers, which is a lifelong dream if we do hit 1,000 subscribers on this channel and on this podcast. So thank you guys again. If you guys have already subscribed, make sure to subscribe if you guys haven't already. So this NBA Finals, again, you're talking about injuries after injuries. This sport is very brutal. Oh, this is it. The parity within the entirety of the last, 5, 24, 23, 22, 1, 20, 19, 7 NBA championships. The Toronto Raptors, the Los Angeles Lakers, the Bucks, the Nuggets. No, the Warriors, the Nuggets, the Boston Celtics, and now the Thunder. This entire sport, especially since Adam Silver's came over, there's a bunch of parity. And I think the hard part is when you shift one way, the conversation goes the other. And so you can't just shift back. You know, there's now luxury taxes, first apron, there's second apron. There's hard locks, mid-level exceptions. You can't take on more money than you're sending out. There's certain things where you can't sign on players because of these restrictions. Because if you're going to pay these players so much money, you're at a deadlock. And most importantly, you have to think about the parity over the last 7 years. That's good. That's good for the sport. Now, maybe not so much for like betting people, but it's good when it comes to the sport. I feel like for the most part, when you're looking at many players, many teams kind of starting off the season, you know pretty much who your contenders are going to be. The hard part about that is, yes, this sport does come with injury. It's a very, very violent game at times. 82 games is a lot. The parity is nice. The parity is good. I'm a fan of the parity. I love that every season, we could have a Cinderella run like the 8th seed Miami Heat, making it all the way to the finals, the second team ever to make it to the finals. You have to think about the Warriors, who kind of were out of their dynasty. They're coming off of COVID. They're coming off a few bad years. They had the 3rd overall pick, drafted James Wiseman, a bust in a lot of ways, who also tore his Achilles, who is now playing for the Pacers. You also think about their run. You're thinking about the Denver Nuggets and, man, the amount of years that they were coming off of just these first to second round losses, which, again, when you think about it, are people going to look at this view of man, Jokic couldn't make it out of the first and second round throughout COVID, and even in the year after in 21, somehow won in 22. Jamal Murray's coming off a big injury, and they somehow make a title run. We going to look at this microscopic and be like, man, they can't even make it past the first and second rounds? You're looking at someone like LeBron, who every time that he hit the playoffs for 10 straight years was making the finals. 8 straight years, but 10 finals in total. It is impressive feats that a lot of these players, especially growing up in the 2000s with the Spurs, obviously with the Lakers, with the Cavs and Warriors, were doing in the 2010s. The miraculous run, obviously, we've seen with Dirk in 2011, beating 3 Goliath big threes in the finals, the Spurs, the OKC, Thunder. It is very impressive that we have had parity from year after year, because for a while we did not have it. I'm very happy with the state that the NBA is in. I think we're going to have to very much revisit what it looks like for Giannis, who's somebody who has been loyal to his city, who has obviously brought a championship to his entire country in Greece, who has brought an NBA championship to the Milwaukee Bucks for the first time in 75 years. It is very impressive stuff if you think about it, where the parity lies from when the Toronto Raptors won in 2019. Who would have thought? And most importantly, if you think about what this looks like in terms of everyone's playoff run, man, Jokic, Giannis, who maybe get glimpses of like the first and second round, obviously the conference championships when they do make it, but maybe fell short. You're obviously looking at someone like Joel Embiid. I think his story is way different because of his injury, his lack of play. He hasn't made it even to a conference championship. And he was drafted in 2015. Maybe before that. No, that's definitely 2015. Again, I might have my years off on these. I'm just kind of remembering off the top of my head. And again, we're going to talk about the draft here in a second. So I should have no issue in knowing who got drafted in this year's 2025 draft. But you think about it. Again, congratulations to the OKC Thunder. I know my sister was very happy. She's a big Shea fan. As much as I'm not a huge Shea fan in terms of the style of play, he's a very respectable player. He's somebody that is very much a great person off the court. But just sometimes the way that people play, it does kind of irk you. As much as I'm a Luka fan, it still irks me a lot when he's yelling at the refs. I understand it. But when other people are getting whistles for much more contact or much less contact, then why are we not getting a whistle when there's much more contact, or vice versa in a lot of ways too? The biggest thing is the NBA is in a good place. I think the only thing that they don't really have down is they are not listening to fans. They're not putting on the NBA decal in the finals, the big giant trophy. I understand it takes some time to build the wood and actually get it, but it sucks that we can't have that as fans. That was like the biggest thing when it comes to, like, the NFL has it. You have to think of maybe the Stanley Cup probably has something similar. I know ice is a little bit different, but it sucks to see how that's happened. They don't listen to a lot of their fan base. The NBA Cup, as cool as it is, I mean, yeah, the courts are cool. I mean, it's kind of fun. It gives a little bit of purpose towards the first end of the season. But the All-Star break, there's just kind of these like NBA Cups, the All-Star break, the finals decal, in the playoffs. The playoffs used to mean something. And for me, it very much did. I would be glued to the NBA Finals. As a kid, I'd be in the YMCA. They'd have a TV in the little rec room. You have to open a door and you check in to see how that's going. Shoot some more hoops. Check in, see how it's going. The NBA was a must-watch, especially in the playoffs. All-Star break, it's a vacation. It's just a week off. Didn't used to be that way. Dunk contest, I love Mac McClung, but they got a lot of work to do in terms of how they referee, how they punish referees. I think that that's a huge thing. I hate that referees can get away with so much pettiness, so much personal vendetta against one person, an individual idea, and they just get to walk away scotch-free. I absolutely hate it. As a fan, I absolutely hate it. But I think the NBA as a whole is in a good place, especially given the circumstances that I just mentioned. The week break, the Emirates Cups, the refereeing. I think it's in a good place. And most importantly, I think that it has a future of parity. I think it has a future of, I think it's okay if you don't make it into the second round. You're going to have to make a push when you can. And I think if you're going to make a push when you can because you have the star power to do it, like the Knicks did this year, like the Celtics did last year, it's going to be in a good place. I think we're going to see some very big blockbuster trades. I think the Luka was just the tip of the iceberg that moved the needle. No one's safe. The Utah Jazz GM, maybe president, maybe both, talked about like, hey, maybe if we do have a few injuries and there are luxury taxes that we have to pay, we might have to trade Nikola Jokic, which you would never want. That'd be a sad day. Living legend, Carmelo Anthony and him, both jersey numbers are 15. You have to think about that, trading away probably the best player that's ever been on your court and on your team and on your franchise. But then you look at like Giannis, who has had some up and downs, who is by far a top 3 player in the league. He could get traded at any time. Milwaukee's in purgatory for the next 5 years. If they want anything back, they're going to have to find a team at the right time that has a lot of picks. Again, the Thunder had a lot. The Suns were racking up after this post-KD trade, which we're going to talk about in this draft, but a lot of teams are in purgatory right now. And it's going to be exciting to see how many teams kind of claw their way back. I remember the Milwaukee Bucks were in purgatory for like 15 years. Obviously 75 years it felt like, but for the most part, 15 plus years. Drafted Giannis, a few years after. Oh, okay, they're actually a good team. I do want to go to that team. I feel like we can contend. And so, it's going to be fun. Enough basketball talk. I do want to talk about something a little different in track and field. It's not too much different than what I normally talk about on this podcast, but we're going to be talking about a little bit about this world record that Faith Kipyegon was going for. She was attempting to be the first woman ever to break sub 4 minutes in the mile. Now, for anyone curious, if you guys know a little bit about track, and if you don't, let me just kind of put out the baseline of what this record looked like. So Faith Kipyegon is running the mile. Now, in professional track and field, you don't really run the mile very often. You run a lot of road miles. You run a lot of, obviously, mileage and training. But in competition, you run the 15, you run the 30, 3,000 meter. It's really not a true mile that you typically run. You run the 15, 3,000, 5K, 10K, maybe with a little bit of steeplechase thrown in, the 800, 400, all the sprint events. This is not a 1,600, which if you have done track or are familiar, in high school, you typically run the 16 and 32. It makes it super easy. It's 4 laps. It's 8 laps. And again, it gets a little different when you get to professionals with the 15 and the 3,000. But the main difference is between a 1,600 meter and a mile is that it's not 1,600 meters, which typically most people contribute to a mile. Now, my 1,600 meter best time is 4:47 something, maybe 92. But then you think about it, you add 9 more meters to it because that is actually a true mile from the conversion rates, and that is what makes a true mile. Now, again, most countries use the metric system. So to run a 1609 meter, it just kind of looks funky. So that's why you would say it is a mile because that is a true mile. So she's trying to become the first woman ever to break sub 4 in the mile, which is a nuts thing to do because when it got broken, the 4-minute barrier back in 1954, May 6th of 1954, when Roger Bannister and his 2 pacers decided to attempt to be the first people to break it. And now they're not the first people that attempted to break it. They're the first people that actually did break it, which is a huge difference because for Faith, she is the first person to actually attempt, the first woman to attempt a training regimen, certain location, having pacers to try and break 4 minutes. And again, in 1954, it was a little different because Roger Bannister, though he was not the first person that attempted it with his team, he was the first person that actually broke it. And the next week, 9 more people broke it, which is kind of insane because you don't really see that in history. And so for Faith, the uphill battle that she had to face was, yes, she's an amazing distance runner. She's got that to go for her. But her mile record is 4:07.62. So that means for over 2 laps and a little bit, you have to be minus 2 seconds on average per lap from her world record attempt, right? And so you're thinking about it. You're like, wow, that's like 2 seconds per lap with a little bit extra on the end because it's 9 meters. It's about 27 to 30 feet. That's a lot. 27 to 30 feet that's a lot of distance. That's like seconds added on. So you're thinking about even almost more. But again, that's her mile time. But again, the lap conversion is a little different because you're doing almost like a lap in a little bit more. A lap and then like 8 feet. Time's ticking. And so she's trying to break this. She partnered with Nike, or Nike partnered with her. And all of that to say, they were in charge of all the promotion, of course, because it's Nike. They set up an entire team and development team to help break it. So they were in charge of all of the strategy when it comes to what is the best optimal race plan to break the win from her. On top of that, also creating a nice draft when it comes to that, the training regimen, all the schematics, the suit that she was wearing, the speed suit that she was wearing. And most importantly, again, she's trying to be the first. Is it possible? And so I think one of the cool things that about Faith, she's such a bubbly person. She seems like the kindest soul that you'd ever meet. She's not like a cocky athlete. I feel like most distance runners aren't, unless you're on the guy's side. If you know, you know. I just feel like, yeah, this is a step in the right direction when it comes to mile, when it comes to track history, when it comes to women's history. Faith Kipyegon is a super talented athlete. She's a gold medalist in a multitude of events. The 15, she held the world record in the 5K at one point. I don't know if she's won a gold medal. She's a 3,000 specialist. And man, she is electric to watch. She's gone after world record, even in the past few years, since 2023 to now. It's been incredible to watch her. And so I woke up like super early and she's trying to break this record. I'm like, okay, we're going to record my reaction to it because like, what about if she does break it? She comes in first lap. And mind you, there's a bunch of pacers. There's a lot more than what was in that first initial Amazon Prime documentary that came out. There's 3 episodes. I still need to watch 2 and 3. But you have to think about it. There was a lot more. There was only about 5 initially, but now there's like 12. And you're like, oh my gosh. So she comes in at basically like 60 seconds. You're like, ooh, that's hot. And I think the part of me knew, having ran distance, having coached distance, having, taken splits for a lot of mileage, as professional as she is, nobody really ever negative splits in the mile like that, at least in that way. And the hard part was knowing that the time that she had to run, they had these lights on the inside so that they know where to be. The hard part about it was you look at the 60 seconds and you know that it's obviously a lap in 8 feet, a lap in 7 feet. You know that she almost felt like she knew that she had to be on that. And again, most people don't negative split. So if you run a 60, then run a 59, that's negative splitting. A positive split if you run 60 and then 65. And unfortunately, as she's going through this, as great as this run was, she attempted to dare. She dared to dream. And dream she did. So 60 laps coming through, a little bit more on the second lap, like 60.6. By the time she got to the third lap, it's 61.6. 61.4, but she's about 1.5 seconds over the time that she needs to be on. And that's a tough third lap to run, especially a near even split. Most people in the mile, that third lap is usually their slowest lap. Now, some people do have a pretty consistent, like maybe it's 60, 60, then 62, which this one kind of was. But you have to think about it because now she has to run a whole lap in 7 feet. And unfortunately, as the accumulation from one lap to the second to the third, as it is, she unfortunately ran a 65 last lap, I believe. And all of that accumulated to a 4:06.42, which honestly is insane. You still have to think about, like, that's the fastest mile that a woman's ever ran. Now, unlike singing or like most like kind of like very like odd talent things, like maybe you're a great guitarist, maybe you're a great drummer, a great singer that could be working a 9 to 5 and have the talent to be like the world's best singer, right? This is the fastest. Distance running doesn't work without training. Now, yes, do I think that there's some people that probably could be close to that? Absolutely. I think Sifan Hassan in her prime probably could run sub 410. I think Nikki Hiltz, I think that they could be up there in that 410 to 412 range. But is 4 minutes possible? Is breaking that barrier 4 minutes, is that possible? I'm not too sure as of right now. But Faith does have a lot of faith. She's saying if it's not if, it's when. She dares to dream, and she's not losing hope on this stream. Maybe she goes out and actually trains for it, like solely. I know she's kind of maybe almost on the back end of her career, or at least the start of it. At least she's nearing the cliff edge where, I mean, yeah, she could probably run for like another 5 years. Is it going to be this peak performance? Especially being a mother, especially just over the load of the years that she's been training. I mean, she's been a professional since 2011. It's 14 years of just purely. And again, distance running's probably the one sport that you could probably do that in. But you're thinking about it, and you're like, man, I hope she does it. I hope that she goes after it again. It was an incredible event. All the shirts, like I've got faith, everything from the marketing to the people surrounding her, the team at Nike, the people that were in the stadium, the people all across the world. Because mind you, like this is not just a distance thing. This is like a track thing. And that's the lovely part, I think, about this record is you're going after something so bold that's never been done before. And I tell my athletes something very similar. But again, when Faith Kipyegon was daring to dream, I tell, how do you make the impossible possible? When you go set a PR because you haven't done it before. If you're at a 4:05 mile and you're trying to break 5 minutes, how do you make the impossible possible? That happens in training. That happens with positive self-talk. That happens with rest and recovery. And obviously a billion other factors. But how do you make the impossible possible? You have to believe that it's possible before it's possible, before you could do it, before you actually do it. And again, I think Faith was no different. I mean, it's an uphill battle. As much as it was just a second PR, I think it's very possible because now you've actually ran it. And I feel like when you go attempt something, you know exactly what it feels like. That second time always feels a lot easier because you've been there, you've done it. And again, when I tell my athletes, how do you make the impossible possible? It happens with that training where you have to be up at a certain speed, at a certain tempo. You're working on this. When the tough gets tough, you have to keep going. And when you train like that, when you compete like that, the next time that moment comes up, it becomes way easier because you've been there before. You've been in familiar territory. And so, man, I wish Faith had actually broken 4. Once I saw the clock, I was like, oh, this is going to be rough. She's obviously not running a world record 100 meter. But you dare to dream. And Faith Kipyegon dreamed. And I hope that, again, one day she goes after it again. She does break it. If not, but when. And I'm super happy to be a fan of this sport because it puts a smile on my face to see things like this. That's maybe not so drama filled with Noah Lyles and Tyreek Hill and speed and things like that. On some good news though, super happy for the NBA draft because as you guys may know, as a Maverick fan, it has been quite the dealio. Post Luka. I mean, Luka was top in points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks in last year's playoffs. He is a playoff riser. He has the second all-time points per game in the playoffs, behind Michael Jordan. That is great company to be behind. He led his team on one knee and one shoulder, maybe a rib, gone too, to the finals against all odds. An amazing comeback, an amazing shots in the playoffs. Yeah, he dealt with a little bit of a calf injury. It happens. We didn't see him for 2 months. And unfortunately, when that happened, we never saw him after Christmas Day in a Mavericks jersey ever again. And that sucks. That sucks. That's crazy that Christmas Day 2024 was the last time I seen Luka play in a Mavericks jersey. But we do have a bright future because out of all odds, with 1.8% in a coin flip to get the number 1 pick, which I was very elated about when it happened, the Dallas Mavericks had the first overall pick in this year's draft, and they drafted none other than Cooper Flagg. Woo! Super excited. I've been kind of watching him over the past year, especially when he was on the USA practice team, the Olympic men's practice team, and absolutely dominated. Maybe not dominated, but did a lot better than you would think a 17, 18-year-old kid at the time would. I think he had just turned 18 at the time. I was training with the USA guys, getting putback dunks, driving into the lane against, Anthony Davis, going up against Drew Holiday, who is by far one of the best perimeter defenders in the league and probably in the world as of right now. And so to do what he had done at that age with obviously the experience that he's kind of carried over from UILB, and obviously his days in Mount Verde Academy, his days at Maine, and obviously now in college, which we just watched, it was incredible over the last year to kind of watch. And mind you, he makes a singular shot in the Final Four, and he's in the championship game. You never know how things could pan out. Just front irons it. And it was one of those shots that you look at and you probably practice a million times and you think about it, because if you go too soft, you're going to airball it. If you just hit it about right, because it's a little fadeaway, right in the middle of the paint. And again, you're fading away, so if you go too short, you're going to airball it. If you go just normal power, you're going to hit front iron, which he did. And if you just push it a little bit more, it's a swoosh. It's that little Dirk fadeaway. Done a million times in that driveway right over there. But it just so happens that he shot it normal, and it just hit front iron. And I'm happy that we got the first overall pick. Of course I am. I'm happy that we got Cooper Flagg. Of course I am. But there are some teams that maybe aren't so much the winners and losers of what I would call this year's NBA draft. We talk about the Spurs, who were obviously maybe a decently good team. Obviously, before Victor Wembanyama went down, they traded for De'Aaron Fox. They obviously have Chris Paul on the team, who's an excellent leader. But they ended up at the number 2. They were one of the biggest risers again, with Dallas coming in from the 11th best odds now to number 1, and the Spurs at 6-2. They pick up Dylan Harper from Rutgers, an amazing player. I think he's a winner. You're talking about someone, again, from Rutgers who took a huge opportunity to go there. I don't think that they made it to the NCAA because I remember seeing a video of him and Ace Bailey, who is also his Rutgers teammate, who unfortunately is a little bit of drama right now, and maybe not a nightmare situation for the Jazz quite yet, but I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. And this is, yes, you can compare it to the Eli Manning, you can compare it to things like that, but I genuinely don't think that this is the way that you should go about something like this. And again, the same thing goes with Eli Manning in the NFL, saying like, if you draft me, I'm not going to play for you. You could draft me, you could trade me. I'm not going to play for you. And that's the interesting part about the draft. As much as I think that the Jazz are winners and actually picking up Walter Clayton Jr., who I think, again, alongside Ace Bailey, could be a very good 1-2 punch. Ace Bailey's a little bit of drama right now, and I think the Utah Jazz are almost losers because of that. And if you're thinking about, yes, it's great that like they picked up Walter Clayton Jr. off a trade, but you're thinking you just drafted Ace Bailey, who obviously had not done any workouts other than with the Wizards the day before. He had canceled his 76ers, who was pick 3, and they picked up VJ Edgecombe. It's a very sad and quite honestly bizarre situation because I hate to say it, he does look a little like Henry Ruggs in a way, maybe with a little bit more of like a trimmed haircut. I am interested to see how this aspires to be for Ace Bailey. He's canceled all of his workouts. He's done basically none other until the last day with the Wizards, who had pick 6, but he got picked up at 5. He's also said that he has no interest in going and playing for the Jazz. But yet, he gets drafted by the Ainge father-son duo. And now he's drama because Walter Clayton Jr. They got all drafted on Wednesday. They all were supposed to get flown out to the facilities on Thursday, and he didn't fly. And he's had minimal contact with the Jazz. His team, I have no idea who his team is. I don't know if it's his mom, his dad, his agent. a few friends of his that he's like, hey guys, like we just got all this NIL money. You guys want to be my agent? I genuinely have no clue. The sirens in my eyes are flaring. It just, everything that he's done is so not traditional. Now, I'm not going to be the person where I'm just like, wow, you have to do it this way. It's league culture, People could take workouts as they want. Some people are going to take 13 different workouts. Some people are only going to take kind of 3, depending on who they're going to get, where they're kind of predicted to get picked by. They don't need to be doing 20 different workouts. Like Brandon Pajemski did 13. Paul George did 13 workouts. These people are good in the NBA. There's no way that we know that Ace Bailey is going to be good in the NBA. We know that he was good at Rutgers. We know that he was good at high school. We know that he was good in pretty much every level that he's played at. But everything off the court says otherwise. He says that he's going to be a problem. It says that, yes, if we do sign him to this contract, does he actually want to fucking play for us? We have no idea. Did we just waste a pick on this person because we got his draft rights now? That's how the NBA works. What the frick is going on? It makes no sense. I just have seen nothing more than bizarre. Nothing short of bizarre with this entire case. If you're going to have minimal contact, at least contact the Jazz and be like, hey guys, oh my gosh, my dad, emergency. I can't fly right now. But to have minimal contact with a team that just drafted you, other than hey, thanks for drafting me. Yeah, I'm super excited to get to work. When can I be there? Tomorrow? And never go. Makes no sense. I have a feeling Ace Bailey is going to be clouding a lot of the headlines when it comes to this upcoming season, especially for players that are good. As much as I don't like covering the negative or some of the buzzy stuff, I have to today because this one's going to be an interesting one. I can't wait to update you on how that's going to go. Also, the Nets. The Nets had 5 picks in the first round, 6 overall. They ended up trading their 36th pick somewhere else for a future pick or whatever it may be. Now, it's the first time ever that any team, franchise, has drafted 5 players in the first round. That is insane. They had 5 picks, and I think a lot of people predicted because, yes, how roster spots work, you can't have more than a certain amount of people on a team. You can't. You have to think about it that way, where you're drafting 5 new players to your team. Yeah, some of them might go to the G League. Some of them maybe become a two-way player. But 5 first-round players who are probably going to get a lot of guaranteed money if they sign their contract, that's a lot. And so you're thinking about, you're drafting at 9. You're drafting maybe at 13, 16, 23, 24. Roughly in those spots. And you draft a guy from Russia who played for BYU, who's not bad, but not a guy that you need on your team. You also draft Nolan Traore from French, a point guard. Okay, not bad, but a very bad pickup for them. You're taking just a huge risk with him. Drake Powell, who I'm great, he played really well on the North Carolina team. But again, with where he's at, he probably could have been picked up at the 20 picks. And now you're guaranteeing more money to be kind of okay. You're also picking up Ben Saraf, who a lot of people kind of questioned his comparison in D'Angelo Russell, who's great at the point of attack, great at pick and rolls as a point guard, but sucks on the defensive end, which is someone that you need. And then also they're taking up Danny Wolf, again, who is great on the offensive end, but awful on the defensive end in ways that is not going to translate to the NBA, in my opinion. And especially paying them all. Oh, I think my sister's going somewhere. Especially paying them all first round money, and especially spending all those picks. I'm sure other teams would have loved to come in and pick them up, give you a lot of draft compensation for the future. I'm intrigued as to why they did that. You have to think that another team like the OKC Thunder, who have a lot of people on payroll, they are a deep team who's probably going to have to go into the luxury tax very soon, or at least the first and second apron, that is. And so, again, I'm not too concerned with the OKC Thunder. Their picks, they've been trading. They've been getting more draft capital. I'm sure that they'll be able to draft some people that are pretty good, develop them for a few years, and get rid of a few contracts like iHeart, Alex Caruso, who's making quite a bit of money, who will probably be gone off the team in a few years. But that's the way that this parity works. Some other winners are the Portland Trailblazers, who picked Jan Hassan, who I think, looking at the footage, a lot of people are saying he's Chinese Jokic. I don't see him as Chinese Jokic. I see him more like Chinese Şengün, the Turkish swimmer. I think he's more of a Şengün than he is a Jokic, in my opinion. That twist and pop and kind of just that little minimal jump that kind of get the ball into the backboard and into the hoop. Jokic is a lot slower. He's a little bit not so quick on his feet, but he's big. I think he's more of a Şengün than he is a Jokic, maybe more of a hybrid of the two. Big, great passer. I don't think Şengün's a great passer, as I think Jokic is a great passer, whereas Jan Hassan is more of a look and feel Şengün, but also with the playmaking abilities of Jokic. So I think he's more of the hybrid of two. Another winner, the Grizzlies, who picked up a dog in Cedric Coward, or as they announced on the broadcast, Colin Coward. How in the world do you mess that up? Like, yes, in your head, I'm assuming you're like, don't say Colin. Yes, his last name is Coward. Do not say Colin Coward because his name starts with a C. It's Cedric Coward. And now, for eternity, every time that if this man is really good, you're going to bring up that footage and it's going to say freaking Colin Coward. The one chance that you get drafted and it's Colin Coward out of all people. Oh my gosh, that's going to, I feel bad for him. He actually played at WSU. He also played at Eastern. He's a great player. He only played a few games at WSU, but he's got a great upside. I think one of the better steals of the draft, especially for the Grizzlies, who had very minimal picks this year. But I think that one's a huge one, if you ask me. That's a huge one. Great pickup there. One of the losers, the Pelicans, they're picking up Jeremiah Fears and Derek Queen at 7 and 3 respectively. What are we doing? I think one of the biggest things that's going to come out of Derek Queen's career, and especially a lot of pressure that's going to be put on him, because yes, he does play the same position as Zion. He's a less explosive Zion. He still can play make. He could still be a big, but the hard part is he's not playing a 5 most of the time. That's Yves Messi. He's going to be playing down low. You probably have a lineup where you interchange Zion. Yes, Zion has dealt with injury, but you have to think about what the New Orleans Pelicans gave up for Derek Queen. They swapped picks with, I don't remember who had this pick, but they swapped picks. Oh, I think it was Atlanta. They swapped picks with Atlanta and gave up their first overall pick in 2026. And it's going to be the best between Milwaukee and the Pelicans, which both teams are not predicted to do very well next year. So Atlanta's rolling big. I think it was the Atlanta trade, but whatever team got that pick, they are rolling big right now. And they should be very happy because they don't really need many draft picks, at least this year. I think they're walking in with a good team. They just picked up Kristaps Porzingis if it is Atlanta. But again, a great pick nonetheless on whoever picked that up. So absolute losers. I think Jeremiah Fears is going to be all right. 7's a little, I think it's all right. Definitely top 10, but for the Pelicans, maybe not a great pickup, especially with Derek Queen coming 6 picks after. The Hornets, I believe this is going to be a very hot take, but I think the Hornets are not winners today. I don't think that they're winners in this draft, at least in the first round. I know that kind of seems harsh because Con Knipple with a high draft pick coming off of a very successful season at Duke, especially going into the ACC championship when Cooper Flagg was down with an ankle injury. I think at 4 is really high. I heard and I'd seen a lot of these draft boards kind of pushing him up into that top 5, definitely top 10. But at 4 is, he's going to be playing roughly in the same position that Brandon Miller is going to be playing. Like, I think Brandon Miller could play the 3, Con Knipple at the 2. But I think that LaMelo is going to be a big playmaker coming into the game. He's a ball handler. That's his whole position. But you're already talking about Brandon Miller who needs the ball in his hand. LaMelo Ball who needs the ball in his hands. But I think the hard part is that he's going to be like a TJ McConnell type 6-man player. Like he's going to be able to run the second unit very well, which I think he will. But the hard part is when you're paying a 6th man who is going to run your second unit, especially for a team like this, who really doesn't have a center right now, $45.5 million. That's a contract with 20 of that guaranteed. That's the 4-year contract that Con Knippel's about to sign projected, because that's what a 4th overall draft pick gets. I think it's too much money right now, in a way, because if he were to sign an extension off his rookie extension, you're paying him 20 to 30% off that extension. If you want him, 20%, meaning that if you sign him, you could at least trade him if you're in the tax. I just think it's going to be a money problem later if they want to sign him, because it's just like, oh my gosh, like we already paid him this. We're already obviously having to do another 30%. That's insane. That's not going to be, it's going to be like $120 million for a player that you're probably just going to trade. So, I think it's going to be a money problem later into his career, especially if he is still on the Hornets by then. Liam McNeely, he's a good shooter, and that's kind of about it. Not a whole lot of athleticism, defensive versatility for a man his stature at 7'6", 7'8", 7'8", 6'7", 6'7", 6'8", 6'7", 8, okay, I hopefully you understood what I meant. But yeah, I think he's a great shooter from Connecticut, but the unfortunate part is that I don't think that, I think it's a great pickup where he was, I just think it's the wrong team, because they need defense. They have like no defense. So again, some of the winners, Suns winner, they just traded for Mark Williams, and then 30 seconds later drafted Kaman Maluch. Great pickup out of Duke. Rasheer Fleming, who, again, they traded into the 31st pick. And I hate to say it, that is probably one of the biggest steals of the draft. Rasheer Fleming out of Arizona. Is he out of Arizona? Am I just tripping? Let me check. I swear he's out of Arizona. Am I wrong by saying that? Oh, Jesus Christ. The St. Joseph's Hawks. Oh my gosh. How did I mess up his college? However, Rasheer Fleming, I think an absolute steal there. You have to think about what Kaman Maluch is going to do. He's probably going to be playing backup center behind Mark Williams for a few years. Mark Williams is going to stay. He's probably going to leave in free agency, and now Maluch can actually step in and be the big for that team. And again, the same thing with Rasheer Fleming. I have his pros and cons here. That's why, hold on, let me look at what he... Oh, do I have it down here? Oh, no, I just have him as a fantastic fit. Oh my goodness. So his pros and cons here, because I did look them up. His high end is Robert Covington, his low end is Olympic Bruno. I think his high end is maybe a little bit better than that. But again, can be, apparently the pros and cons are frame, athleticism, defense, shooting, and rebounding, which is probably everything you need on a team like that. His cons are scoring, handling, shot consistency. But you have to think, you have 3 other people that can actually do that. If you can freaking rebound the ball like a Josh Hart, like a Robert Covington in this case, I think they're going to be very, very well off. So that's all of that to say. I think that's huge. I think that's a huge pickup. Kings, I think, are also winners. Nick Clifford had an amazing NCAA March Madness for Colorado State. If he hit a crazy game-winning shot that was then middled to nothing because of Derek Queen. So I think his NCAA March Madness run was great for him. He did get picked up by the Kings, which I think is a great matchup, because personally to me, watching him play, I think he's very much a baby DeMar DeRozan with a little bit more of like Paul George's play style. Just because he's a little lighter than Paul George. And yeah, I think he's like a young DeMar DeRozan. Maybe not so much in that play style, but just of the frame, the kind of like he has his shots, which DeMar was been known for, especially when he was on the Raptors, when he was on the Spurs. He was very much a type of guy that would find his shots. And I think that this is going to be no different, because Zach LaVine is going to be playing off ball, Sabonis, Valanciunas, a lot of these players. Is Valanciunas still on the Suns? The whole free agency thing's kind of confusing to me, because I know he went there late in the trade, but I feel like he's still there. That team could actually make the playoffs. As bad as it looks with DeMar, Zach, Sabonis, and Valanciunas, oh my gosh, what a team that is. That's like a 2K team. That's like a dodgeball team. That's, you know what that's like? That's like a lottery draft. or an expansion draft. That's what that's like. Those are the players that you would see on an expansion draft. Like 80, high 80s, mid 80s overall players that like didn't get saved because like, yeah, maybe their money's too high. Get shipped over to the expansion draft. But I think all these are my winners and losers of this NBA draft. I think there's big upsides on a lot of players. I'm excited to see how the Ace Bailey drama continues. The Nets 5 overall picks. That's going to be kind of exciting in Summer League. And most of all, I'm excited for that Jan Hassan. I'm excited for the Suns. I'm excited for a lot of these players, especially that Cedric Coward or Colin Coward, as Malika Andrews mentioned. It's going to be quite exciting to see how this all plays out. But most importantly, hope that you guys did enjoy today's podcast episode 76 of The Realest Podcast. The banner is right behind me. I hope that you guys did enjoy. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Leave some 5-star reviews if you guys did enjoy this podcast. If you guys are watching on audio, shout out to all my people out in Antigua and Bermuda. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. 07 and peace. Peace.